The question is, will I ever do a retreat in Canada? This is from Now But Later. That's the username. Thank you, Angelo. Have you ever considered hosting a retreat or event in Canada? With the exchange rate and political environment right now, it's becoming even more difficult for us to travel to the U.S. Appreciate everything you do for making non-duality accessible to all, and totally understand if it's not feasible. Your online content helps immensely and is greatly appreciated. Well, thank you for saying that. I'm not closed to the idea. Someone suggested this a while back. We looked at some kind of venues in Vancouver, and they were not cheaper than the U.S. But other parts of Canada, they certainly might be. I don't know what that would look like. Maybe if some people have some suggestions, places that would be easy to travel to from the States, places that can handle a good number of people and have the capacity and ability to do it would be important. But possibly, yeah, good idea. All right, this one is from Pineapple Hat. It just says, feeling grand. Glad to hear it. This is a longer one. This one's from Bohemian Asylum. It's a fun name. I thought I was awake while I was a seeker. My first awakening, yes, there can be more than one, happened when I left the corporate banking world and tossed my place in society out the window. I decided to do my own thing and experience my bucket list. At age of 43, not having the distraction to occupy my mind and opening my chakras through hot yoga brought on my first awakening. The fact of throwing away all my social status and being seen as crazy and living my life the way I really wanted to, I thought that was awakening. When it really happened, it freaked me out more than the frustration and fear of our society. Yeah, this can happen to some people. This is why I really try to make a point of the truth that awakening isn't what you think, no matter who you are, no matter how, even if you really do want it and you really are oriented to true awakening, it's not what you think it is. It will never be, because it's not about thoughts, of course, and beliefs. And for some, it can be surprising. And for some who aren't really looking for it, and it comes on either spontaneously or in this case, it's like you were kind of mixed up in some spiritual practices and you got more than you bargained for. It can be distressing, the surprise of it or whatever. So I'll read the rest. I withdrew back into the world to try to stave it off. Not a good idea. I don't recommend that. But once opened, you can't unsee or step back from it. It is true. It's happening, and it just keeps happening. Existential terror. Yes, existential terror can come and will come in deeper realization. I'm hoping that the fear I feel now will normalize with the exposure. This wasn't what I was expecting, and honestly, I'm really sorry it happened to me. The biggest thing I want to say here is to you and to anyone who resonates with this or feels this way is do not fight this process. It is a really, really bad idea. You won't win. You will suffer more than is necessary. You can add suffering to this process. The other thing I want to point out is that even after awakening, that is not the end of suffering. That's the beginning of the deconstruction of the apparatus that creates and keeps the delusions going that cause suffering. But the number one thing I would say to this person is you're fighting this. Don't. Life isn't about what you want. Never has been, never will be. And awakening is a pure version of that. Reality isn't about what we want. It's not about what we don't want either. It just doesn't care. It's not like it is concerned with what we think we need or want based on the illusion of separation that doesn't exist in the first place. So anything you look at through that ego structure, any way you look at life, it's going to be distorted. You can tell yourself good stories like, oh, when I get the next awakening, it's going to be great. You can do that, or you can tell yourself bad stories. Oh, this awakening is the worst thing that ever happened. Either way, you're looking through an ego structure, right? So this person has had an awakening. It's great. Now it's time to align yourself with reality. Don't fight it. How can you fight this, right? You're the only one that's going to suffer from that. Maybe those around you to some degree. But I promise you this, the innocent bystanders are much more harmed by people who are asleep than people who are awake. If you're not aware of your own suffering, which was how you were before all this, you will give it to other people sideways, whether you know it or not. So you're in a transitional phase where you finally realized you're suffering. It's always been there. It's not new. Awakening doesn't give you suffering. Awakening wakes you up to the horror show of trying to fight reality, fight life, create something that doesn't exist, uphold that something that doesn't exist, make life do what you want it to do. Life isn't going to do what you want it to do. It just does what it does. And there's tremendous peace and freedom when that is fully accepted. But that can't be fully accepted as long as there's an ego structure there, as long as there's an identity structure that's perceiving itself to be separate, that wants to constantly be in control of how it feels. You will suffer, right? And the deeper realization goes, the higher the stakes are, the more you will suffer. So really, the news is good for you if you're just willing to finally like get on board with this. Yeah, it can go a lot smoother than this. I will say, I occasionally bump into people who are rather the opposite. They are just full on like, let this take me where it needs to take me. I want reality, even if I don't want reality. I'm okay with this, the pain of it and feeling the feelings and emotions and even the resistance. I want to see it all. I want to feel it all. Like, let's go. Let's bring it on. They do really well with this process. They do really well. And what they feel is a lot of gratitude instead of a lot of regret, anger, and so forth. Okay, so with all that said, what I sense underneath this is anger. And that's a very personal human emotion, right? It's not this. The anger is not about anything. It's just there. It could have been from trauma, of course. It has a root, but the thing I would encourage this person to do would be to really look into anger, address it. Not in some spiritual way. Don't bypass it. I would do something like good circling, inside circle. I recommend all the time. There's, well, I'm not sure. Mankind Project is a men's group, but there's other versions for women. But doing some kind of deep emotion work, PSIP. If there's trauma, maybe PTSD. Consider EMDR therapy, trauma therapy, these kinds of things to get under that and to really access that anger, find out what it's about, because that's what I feel. I could be wrong, but just reading this whole thing, and there's another comment by the same person coming up later. What I feel behind it is anger. And that's not bad. That's good, because if you know it's there, you can directly address it. If you don't know it's there, again, you're being operated by it in a way you don't realize. So there's a lot of good news here. The good news is this doesn't have to be so painful. The bad news is you're going to have to let go of some beliefs about narratives, about all of this that you're describing, and realize we don't live in the world of narratives anymore. After awakening, narratives get more and more and more costly, whether they're good narratives or bad narratives. It doesn't matter. And belief, the signature of belief and certainty that's intellectual, that has to do with time, my story. I definitely know this story. I know where it came from. I know where it's going. That rigid holding of that will be really, really uncomfortable in deeper realization. And life will pry your fingers from it sooner or later. But you can trust life. It's okay. You're in good hands. But a lot of times we don't want to trust that. We don't want to trust life because we've never learned this is all like internal family system stuff, right? It's not that we don't actually trust life. It's just that we don't trust people, right? Maybe we don't trust ourselves, and that has to do with our own background, our traumas, and so forth. So a lot of this deep stage realization stuff gets worked out through good shadow work, which is not spiritual per se. Like I said, circling, trauma work, things like that. You got to get down into that pain body in a very real, practical, and relative way. That's what I'd recommend. And this won't be this ongoing, painful experience for you. And the dissociation, which when you talk about existential terror, I sense there's dissociation in response to that. And that can be hard to even recognize because they seem like the same thing. This is where PSIP shines. I think is as good at getting you so close to that you can see the difference between dissociation and the raw emotion itself, experienced at the sort of age that it is embedded at. It's embedded at a certain psychological age within our identity structure. Okay. I had a lot to say because this comment said a lot to me, and I also read another comment by the same person. I'll probably just skip that one. This one's from Dan Brellen. It says, maybe I can feel however I want, choose to. If I want to feel sad or lonely, I have things to think about that could help me feel that way. If I want to feel alive, powerful, abundant, positive, limitless, creative, aware, connected, magnetic, kind, beautiful, and loving, well, I am. Yeah, this is kind of like law of attraction sort of way of thinking about things or looking at things. And I've said before, I don't want to totally discount this. There is some truth to the fact that we can grow up sometimes, or like I did, with such a disempowering thought process, and it was just totally learned by, interactions with family and so forth, that to realize that we can kind of replace it with a more empowering thought process can be really helpful for a while. It's especially in the relative, in self-development and relationship development in your academic life and work and all that. I think there's some benefit to just realizing, and mostly the benefit isn't the control of your emotions and thoughts in the way it sounds like. The benefit is in seeing that there's another way to perceive reality than other than through a lens of, like, I don't know, negativity and self-hatred and disempowering thoughts. But it's not awakening yet. But sometimes when you iron out the wrinkles in the relative life, you kind of get those things you really wanted to get and realize that those don't give the deep satisfaction you were hoping they would, then you start looking more toward awakening. So appreciate your comment. This one's from Corey. Feels like you're talking directly to me, or talking to me specifically. I am talking right to you. This one's that references the video Gone, Gone, Gone Beyond. From John Squabbler. Disillusioned. Fantastic. May we all be disillusioned. Yeah, for sure. Disillusionment seems so undesirable, doesn't it? Disillusionment. Disillusionment's awesome. Because you don't need the illusions. It can be uncomfortable to let go of them, but it turns out you don't need them, and you can live a much more satisfying life without them. All right. This is from John Squabbler as well. The relative truth of thoughts, or believing the content of thoughts, is a distraction to avoid truth. I agree. Not a means of apprehending it. I totally agree. But try telling this to academia or to religious theology. Yeah, I don't need to tell them anything. People wake up when they're ready. Lost in thought, as it were, and it's probably not going to land anywhere. And as you point out, this misunderstanding is not solidified by pouring more feel-good spiritual concepts into it. Recognition opened up for me only once I discovered, with your help, what a thought actually is, and thereby what it isn't. Without this recognition, I'm in the same place this initial commenter seemed to be speaking from, so I'm moved by their cry for help. Yeah, exactly. This is from my video called You Want to Wake Up, Then Let Go of the Spiritual BS. It's one of my favorite videos I've ever made. Yeah, I agree with your whole comment here. I will say I don't wholesale discount religious theology and academia. I mean, there are certainly academics who are clear and awake, and there's value to the academic world and the relative world. In relative life, of course. But when it comes to waking up, it's not really about academics, and it's not about philosophy, for sure. It's not about knowledge. It's about going into the unknown, which is also examining your identity, which aren't two different processes. Okay. This is from Bill Romas. Life as it is, with no filters, totally transparent. Yes, exactly. That's from my video called This. This is from a guacamole, as opposed to guacamole. Great name. Realized I never expressed much gratitude, but have been feeling a lot of it for a week. I will never be able to thank you enough. I would have been lost if not for these pointers, encouragements, and the transmission of obvious clarity from which you talk to us. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, 3 times. You're welcome. Very welcome. It's all there. It's all, you have it all. You already have access to everything. You have everything that's needed. You have access to everything that's needed. But I'm glad my reflections on the process help. This is from Giro12. Okay, Angelo, I'm just so screwed if all of this non-duality is just a lie or awakening. I don't know what that last part means. It says, I have two choices. First, being free to the real. That's a good choice. Or else, I'm screwed totally if it turned out a lie. I'm accept dying as a screwed person in life with a laugh and a fire. So I kind of get the sense of what this person's saying, I think. What you're really doing is you're characterizing doubt. You're speaking from the voice of doubt, which is good. Now can you see that doubt is one thought? This is one passing thought. That's all it is. Now, when we have a ton of thoughts, when we have seemingly endless thoughts and we're identified with thoughts and we don't realize we're having thoughts, we believe that's me moving through a world with a past and a future, thinking about myself and my problems and my solutions that I want to use to fix the problem of me. And sometimes that's solutions of awakening. That whole internal world that's just going on, thought after thought. If you're looking from that, then you don't always realize the degree of doubt that is operating. Like you don't always realize that the actual apparatus of that feeling of you in time, separate from everything, trying to find its way back or whatever, trying to find its way out, way back, trying to find satisfaction, whatever it thinks it's going to find. That whole thing is built out of doubt, right? But you can see it as one thought. And in this way, you see this is one thought. The thought is, oh my God, I hope this is real, because if it's not real, I'm screwed. The only thing that's not real is the thought. It's not that the thought's not real, it's just a thought. It's not really pointing to something, right? The fear is unfounded. And also the certainty of awakening making you happy is unfounded. The whole thing's unfounded. And the news is better than you can imagine, regardless of either way it goes and the way you are perceiving it, right? That's a thought fork. It's like, oh, it's this or this, right? One's really good, one's really bad. The mind divides everything into that, good, bad, before, after. But even if that thought process were to receive what it thinks it wants, what I'm pointing to is better than that, because it's freer than that. It's more real than that. It's direct, simple, innocent, just here, always available, always accessible, doesn't need fixed. Yeah, you don't need fixed. There's nothing about you that needs repair. Okay. This one's from Ines. In my case, reality stirred up some aspects of life, so in a sense, it's obvious how much thought planning helped, but it's okay. Still, I intuitively feel to kindly not cling to the thought saying, no worries, it's going to be okay. I sense it's another trying to form a safety net. Yes, true. At this stage, it's just not needing felt to be the case. Somehow, it's like I'm in awe to this, what's happening to me, and unconditional love and availability doesn't include safety nets. Thank you, Angelo. You're welcome. And that's exactly right. You can even let go of the thought that says, okay, everything's going to be okay. Or, oh, I had an awakening and I saw through the, whatever you saw through, or the oneness I experienced. You don't even need to stabilize that with thoughts. You don't need to use thoughts to try to recreate or remember that. That's also just a coping mechanism. You can just let go again and again and again and again. Yeah, just letting go is always happening here, always. This doesn't hold on. Life doesn't hold on. It's not collecting anything. Nothing's accumulating. Nothing's building up. And there's nothing you need to purge either. Thank you for your comment. Okay, good for now.